So she has always been my wife.
The elevator doors slide open with a soft ding. A man in a $10,000 suit steps out, his Italian leather shoes clicking against marble floors. He doesn't look left. He doesn't look right. He walks past the woman on her knees, scrubbing those same floors until they gleam. She's invisible to him. Just another cleaning lady in his empire of glass and steel. But then, something stops him cold. A birthmark on her wrist. A scar on her hand. The way she hums a melody he hasn't heard in 30 years. His world tilts. "Excuse me." His voice cracks like thunder in the silent hallway. She looks up. Their eyes meet. And in that moment, everything he thought he knew about his life crumbles. Margaret. Her cleaning rag falls to the floor. "So she has always been my wife," he whispers, and the words echo through corridors that have never heard such raw, broken truth. This is the story of how a billionaire's empire was built on the back of the one woman he abandoned, and how she became the ghost cleaning his castle. Let me take you back to where it all began. Two young souls in love, dreaming bigger than their small southern town could contain. She was brilliant, valedictorian, scholarship to medical school, a future that sparkled like diamonds. He was ambitious, hungry for more than his father's construction business could offer. They married young. Too young, some said. But love doesn't listen to wisdom, does it? Margaret supported him through business school. She worked 2 jobs while he studied late into the night, building business plans that would one day reshape skylines. She believed in his vision when no one else would. "We're going to build something incredible together," he promised her one night, holding her close in their tiny apartment. She smiled, her hands already showing the wear of endless shifts. "We already are. But dreams have a way of growing bigger than the dreamers themselves. And sometimes, the people we love the most become the casualties of our ambition. What would you have done? When success starts calling your name, would you have remembered the hands that lifted you up? Or would you have forgotten, like so many do, the price of reaching for the stars? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Because this story, it's about to get darker than you can imagine. Success came fast. Too fast. His construction company exploded overnight. Government contracts. Private developments. Money flowing like rivers after a storm. But money changes people. It whispers lies in your ear, tells you that you deserve better, that you've outgrown your past. Margaret watched her husband transform. The man who used to hold her hand during their evening walks now came home speaking a language she didn't understand. Board meetings. Stock options. Mergers and acquisitions. "I barely see you anymore," she said one evening, setting dinner on the table for one. "This is temporary," he replied, not looking up from his phone. "Just until we get to the next level." But there's always a next level, isn't there? The late nights became later. The business trips became longer. And Margaret found herself alone in a house that grew bigger and colder with each passing month. She tried to adapt, took etiquette classes, bought expensive dresses, learned to speak the language of his new world. But no matter how hard she tried, she could see it in his eyes. She was becoming an embarrassment. A reminder of where he came from. A chain holding him back from where he wanted to go. And if stories like Margaret's cut deep into your soul, then don't just watch. Hit that subscribe button for Black Nation. Because we've got more untold stories of resilience that need to be heard. The breaking point came at a company gala. Margaret wore her best dress, practiced her smile in the mirror. She wanted so badly to be the wife he needed. But when they walked into that ballroom full of society's elite, she felt their stares like daggers. "This is my wife, Margaret." He introduced her to a circle of investors. The way he said it, like an apology. One of the women, dripping in diamonds and disdain, looked Margaret up and down. "Oh, how charming. You must tell us about your background, dear." Margaret's mouth went dry. These people spoke in codes she'd never learned. Old money. Family names that opened doors. Connections that spanned generations. She was a construction worker's daughter who'd married a construction worker's son. And in that moment, surrounded by crystal chandeliers and champagne glasses, she felt smaller than she'd ever felt in her life. That night, he didn't speak to her during the drive home. "I embarrassed you," she said finally, breaking the silence. He stared straight ahead. "You embarrassed us both." Those words cut deeper than any blade ever could. But this was only the beginning of Margaret's nightmare. Divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday morning. No conversation. No warning. Just cold, legal language dissolving 20 years of marriage like it meant nothing. Irreconcilable differences, the papers read. Margaret knew better. The only irreconcilable difference was that she wasn't born into wealth, and his new circle demanded a wife who was. The settlement was generous, they told her. The house, a monthly allowance, enough to live comfortably for the rest of her life. But comfort wasn't what Margaret wanted. She wanted justice. She wanted to prove that the woman he was discarding had value, that the hands he was pushing away could build something beautiful too. So she did something that shocked everyone. She gave it all back. Every penny. The house. The cars. The jewelry. All of it returned with a simple note. I don't need your charity. I never did. Starting over at 45 with nothing but her pride and her refusal to be pitied. Margaret took the first job she could find. Cleaning offices at night. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was literally cleaning up other people's messes while her own life lay in ruins. But here's what her ex-husband didn't understand about the woman he'd married and abandoned. Margaret had been forged in struggle long before she met him. Her strength didn't come from his success. It came from something deeper. Something unbreakable. She worked those midnight shifts with a dignity that made other workers stop and stare. Never complained. Never spoke ill of the man who'd thrown her away. Just cleaned with the same precision and care she'd brought to everything else in her life. Why do you work so hard? A younger cleaner asked her one night. It's just floors and windows. Margaret paused, her reflection staring back from a spotless mirror. Nothing is just anything. Every surface you clean with purpose. Every job you do with honor. Word spread in the cleaning company. Margaret was reliable. Professional. She could clean a boardroom like she belonged in it. Because she did. Promotions came slowly but steadily. Team leader. Supervisor. Regional manager. But Margaret's real power was in something else entirely. She listened. Those late-night cleaning shifts in corporate offices? You hear things. Important things. Conversations that happen after hours when executives think no one's paying attention. Margaret started taking notes. Not to spy or sabotage, but to understand. How deals were made. How businesses operated. How power really worked in the corporate world. She was getting an MBA in the shadows. And all the while, her ex-husband's empire continued to grow. His name on buildings. His picture in magazines. His new wife, a blonde socialite with the right pedigree, smiling beside him at charity galas. He thought he'd erased Margaret from his story. He had no idea she was about to become the most important chapter. What would you have done in Margaret's shoes? Would you have walked away quietly, or would you have found a way to rise? Tell us in the comments, because Margaret's journey is about to take a turn that will leave you speechless. 25 years. That's how long Margaret spent invisible in plain sight. Cleaning the offices that built fortunes. Listening to the conversations that shaped deals. Learning the language of power from the shadows. Her ex-husband's company had grown into a corporate giant. The name on the building's lobby gleamed in gold letters, a monument to his success. And every night, Margaret walked through those halls, her footsteps silent on floors she polished to perfection. She knew every executive's schedule, every board member's weakness, every dirty secret whispered in boardrooms after the cameras stopped rolling. But Margaret wasn't interested in secrets. She was interested in justice. You see, while her ex-husband was building his empire, Margaret was building something too. A small cleaning company that had grown into something bigger. Much bigger. She'd spent decades earning the trust of corporate clients. Her company cleaned for banks, law firms, government buildings. And because people never really see the cleaning staff, Margaret had access to information that would make investigative reporters weep with envy. Information about tax evasion. About bribes disguised as consulting fees. About environmental violations covered up with campaign contributions. Information about her ex-husband's company. The beautiful symmetry of it all would have made Shakespeare proud. The woman he'd discarded as worthless now held the power to destroy everything he'd built. But Margaret's revenge was far more elegant than destruction. It was replacement. The night everything changed started like any other. Margaret's cleaning crew arrived at the corporate tower as they had thousands of times before. But tonight was different. Tonight, Margaret wore something special under her cleaning uniform. A tailored business suit that cost more than most people's rent. Because tonight, she wasn't just the cleaning lady. She was the new majority shareholder. Those decades of listening, of learning, of building her own empire in the shadows, they'd all led to this moment. Margaret had quietly purchased shares through shell companies, minority investors, and strategic partnerships. Every time her ex-husband's company went public with new stock offerings, Margaret was there, buying pieces of his kingdom. The elevator dinged as it always did. But this time, when her ex-husband stepped out in his $10,000 suit, Margaret wasn't on her knees scrubbing floors. She was standing, waiting, wearing a boardroom smile that could cut glass. "Hello, David." He stopped cold. The color drained from his face like water from a broken dam. "Margaret?" Surprised. She smoothed her jacket. "You shouldn't be. After all, you taught me that the person with the most shares makes the decisions." His voice cracked. "What are you doing here?" "I work here. Have for 25 years. Though I suppose my job description is about to change." She pulled out a folder thick with legal documents. "Effective immediately, I'm the new CEO." The folder hit the marble floor with an echo that seemed to shake the building's foundation. That's impossible." 51%, David. "Turns out, all those years you were building your empire, I was building mine. The difference is, I never forgot where I came from. What happened next will haunt you. But before we get there, make sure you subscribe to Black Nation. Because stories like this need to be told, and we're the ones brave enough to tell them." David's legs gave out. He sank into the nearest chair, his empire crumbling around him in real time. "Why?" he whispered. Margaret knelt down, not to clean this time, but to look him in the eye. To make sure he understood every word. "Because you threw away the only person who ever believed in you. Because you treated me like I was nothing when I was everything. Because you needed to learn that success without honor is just failure wearing expensive clothes." Tears streamed down his face. 30 years of regret hitting him all at once. "But mostly," Margaret continued, "because someone needed to prove that the woman you discarded was worth more than the empire you built on her back." She stood up, straightening her jacket again. "So she has always been my wife," David whispered, the words falling from his lips like a prayer. "Even when I was too blind to see it." Margaret paused at the elevator doors. "No, David. I stopped being your wife the day you decided I wasn't good enough for your new life. What I am now is something you never imagined I could be." The elevator doors closed. And with them, the final chapter of David's reign. Margaret's transformation of the company was swift and decisive. Gone were the environmental violations. Gone were the worker exploitation policies. Gone were the tax evasion schemes that had padded profits while communities suffered. In their place, Margaret built something revolutionary. A company that hired from the communities it served. That paid living wages to everyone from the cleaning staff to the executive suite. That treated every employee with the dignity David had never shown her. The financial media called it impossible. "You can't run a major corporation like a family business," they said. Margaret proved them wrong. Profits soared. Employee satisfaction reached record highs. The company became a model for ethical business practices across the industry. But the most profound change wasn't in the boardroom or the balance sheets. It was in the way Margaret walked through those halls she'd once cleaned in silence. Now, every night shift worker knew her name. Every janitor, every security guard, every person society had trained the corporate world to ignore. They saw themselves reflected in the CEO's office for the first time in history. Ms. Margaret, one of the young cleaners, approached her during a late-night visit to the executive floor. "Is it true what they say? That you used to clean these same floors?" Margaret smiled, picking up a cleaning cloth that had been left behind. She wiped down a conference table with the same care she'd shown 25 years earlier. "I still clean them," she said. "The difference is, now everyone can see I was always qualified to own them." The lesson here cuts deeper than corporate success stories or rags to riches fairy tales. Margaret's story is about the dangerous blindness that comes with climbing the ladder of success. How easy it is to forget the people who lifted you up when you're focused on reaching higher ground. But it's also about something more powerful. It's about the unbreakable strength that lives in people society teaches us to overlook. The cleaning lady. The night shift worker. The woman whose husband decided she wasn't sophisticated enough for his new life. Every single day, there are Margarets walking among us. Invisible in plain sight. Cleaning up our messes, supporting our dreams, holding together the world while the people they love chase bigger and better things. Legacies like Margaret's deserve to be remembered. Subscribe to Black Nation, and let's keep these stories alive together. How many times have we been guilty of the same blindness that destroyed David? How many times have we looked right through the people whose hands keep our world spinning? Margaret's story isn't just about corporate revenge. It's about recognition. About seeing the value in people society trains us to ignore. about understanding that the person scrubbing your floors might be the most qualified person in the building to run the company. The ripple effects of Margaret's revolution extended far beyond one corporate tower. David never recovered from the revelation. Not financially. Margaret ensured he received a fair severance package, because unlike him, she understood the value of treating people with dignity even when they don't deserve it. But the psychological impact broke something in him that could never be repaired. He spent his remaining years traveling to small southern towns, speaking at community colleges and job training centers. His message was always the same. Never forget the people who believed in you before you had anything worth believing in. It was perhaps the most honest thing he'd said in 30 years. His socialite wife left him within 6 months. Turns out, when you're no longer the man with the biggest empire, the woman who married you for your status suddenly discovers she has irreconcilable differences, too. The irony wasn't lost on David. Or on Margaret. But Margaret's transformation went beyond personal vindication. She revolutionized an entire industry. Her company became the template for ethical business practices. Harvard Business School wrote case studies about her management philosophy. Forbes featured her on their cover with the headline, "The CEO who cleaned her way to the top." More importantly, she created pathways for people like herself. Margaret established scholarship programs for non-traditional students, mentorship networks for workers looking to transition from service jobs to corporate leadership, training programs that taught companies how to recognize and develop talent in the people they'd been trained to overlook. The cleaning staff in her company weren't just employees, they were stakeholders. Everyone from the night janitor to the executive assistant owned shares in the company's success. Because Margaret understood something that most CEOs never learn. The people who clean up your messes are the ones who know best how to prevent them. Within 5 years, Margaret's model had been adopted by companies across 3 continents. The Margaret method became shorthand for corporate leadership that honored every level of the organization. But perhaps the most powerful aftermath was the simplest. Every night, when Margaret walked through the halls of her corporate tower, she stopped to talk with the cleaning staff. Not as their CEO, but as someone who understood the dignity of their work. "How are you doing tonight, James?" she'd ask the security guard. "Any challenges with the executive floors, Rosa?" she'd inquire of the head cleaner. "Is your son settling in well at college, Michael?" She'd remember about the janitor whose dreams she was helping to fund. These weren't performative gestures for corporate cameras. These were moments of genuine connection between a woman who'd spent 25 years invisible and the people society was still trying to make disappear. The night shift workers at Margaret's company had something their counterparts nowhere else in the world possessed. The absolute certainty that they were seen, valued, and respected by the person at the very top. And in boardrooms across the corporate landscape, a new question began appearing in executive discussions. What would Margaret do? Because sometimes the most powerful revolution isn't about tearing down the system. Sometimes it's about proving that the system's most overlooked people are actually its greatest assets. Margaret died peacefully at the age of 78, surrounded by the hundreds of people whose lives she'd transformed. Her funeral was attended by cleaning staff and CEOs, janitors and judges, security guards and senators. David was there too, in the back row, tears streaming down his face. As Margaret had requested, her eulogy wasn't delivered by a corporate executive or a government official. It was delivered by Rosa, the head cleaner who'd worked alongside Margaret during those invisible years. "Margaret taught us that there's no such thing as unskilled labor," Rosa said, her voice carrying across a cathedral filled with people from every walk of life. "There are only people whose skills haven't been recognized yet. She showed us that the person cleaning your office today might be running your company tomorrow. That the woman you walk past without seeing might be the most important person in the building. But most importantly, Margaret proved that when you lift up the people society teaches you to look down on, you don't just change their lives. You change the world." The applause lasted 7 minutes. And in that cathedral, filled with CEOs and cleaning staff sitting side by side, Margaret's true legacy became clear. She hadn't just built a corporate empire. She'd built a movement. A movement that whispered to every overlooked, underestimated, invisible person in the world. You matter. You have value. You have power. And someday, if you never give up, you might just inherit the earth. This was only the beginning of stories like Margaret's spreading across the globe. Hit that subscribe button to stay with us as we uncover more tales of triumph that the world needs to hear. So the next time you see a cleaning lady working late into the night, remember Margaret's story. The next time you walk past someone society has taught you not to notice, remember that you might be looking at your future CEO. And the next time someone tells you that certain people aren't qualified for certain positions, remember that qualification isn't about where you started. It's about how far you're willing to climb. Margaret's story lives on in every person who refuses to accept society's limitations. In every worker who knows their worth even when their boss doesn't see it. In every dreamer who understands that the view from the top is sweetest when you remember exactly how you got there. We tell our stories for us by us. Subscribe to Black Nation, join this community, and let's make sure voices like Margaret's are never silenced again.